Right, this video is going to be about memory changes in late adulthood. And the thing about memory changes is they are fairly common. For most people, they are noticeable but mild. The thing is, I've mentioned things like ageism and stereotypes that most older adults are very aware of. And then we also have this thing called stereotype threat. Stereotype threat is when you are aware of the stereotypes or the negative expectations about you, and it puts you in an uneasy state where you feel like you have to prove yourself. Like, don't support the stereotype, don't prove it right, and then you're so nervous that you perform poorly and you inadvertently support the stereotype. All right, so older adults can experience stereotype threat. They suspect their memories are fading, or they know that people are expecting them to have poor memory. They know that there's this general expectation that as you get older you have poorer memory, and anxiety about possible memory loss. The anxiety messes with their performance. And so it's that anxiety rather than actual memory loss, but to an outside observer, it looks like straight up memory loss. All right, other issues with memory, in addition to the stereotype threat making things worse, we also have some specific sorts of phenomena that we observe. One of them is problems with source monitoring, or you have source amnesia. Amnesia means memory loss. Source amnesia, this is where you forget where you learned or heard or read a particular fact or bit of information or bit of knowledge. So you forget the origin. You forget the origin of a fact, idea, a conversation. Well, why do we care about this? When is this relevant? Sometimes you may have seen something on Facebook, or just heard your random wacky neighbor talking about something. When you have source amnesia, you may not remember where you heard it. You just remember that you've heard it or read it, seen it. And then you're like, oh, I've heard that that's true. You may mistakenly think that you read it or heard it in a reputable source, when really you did not. And so sometimes you have that thing where you will falsely remember getting something from a trustworthy source when really you didn't. And this can happen a lot. It doesn't just happen with older adults, but you will see that it's more evident, more observed in late adulthood. Now, we also see problems in prospective memory, kind of planning ahead, remembering to do something in the future. So remembering you've got that doctor's appointment, remembering to take your meds. There's lots of things where you kind of have to plan, I'm going to need to remember to do this thing. And sometimes you have to have that metacognition, that meta memory, to have awareness. Oh yeah, I need to write that down. I need to put my pills in the pill sorter to make sure that I know which ones I've taken already. I'm going to need to set a reminder that I need to set up that appointment, that I need to go pick up my check, that I need to send a birthday card. You know, there's all sorts of things that sometimes you have to plan for when you're going to have to remember something. And you start seeing deficits. You start seeing declines in prospective memory in late adulthood. Now, we also see differences in working memory. So working memory, that is what you're working on right now. All right, so right now you're using your working memory to pay attention to the video. All right, you are thinking about what I'm saying. If you're trying to take notes from it, you're trying to write it down, you're trying to keep those thoughts, those words, those terms active in your working memory. If somebody says, if you said, hey, I need to, well, back in the day before we had cell phones and we could just program everybody's number in our cell phone, like if you had to call somebody and you'd say, hey, what's grandma's phone number? And somebody would call out the number to you, you would have to keep that in your working memory as you keyed the numbers or dialed the numbers into an old-fashioned phone. And so you had to use your working memory. Working memory changes in late adulthood. Brain slowdown reduces working memory. You can only hold so much information in your working memory. It reduces. Older individuals take longer to perceive and process sensations, and what the end result is that multitasking is particularly difficult in late adulthood. You're really going to be way more efficient if you do one thing at a time, and you're able to focus on that one thing and not try to balance too many things in your working memory. It's going to backfire. It's not going to work. Now, we also see changes in control processes. Executive functioning, control processes, things we've talked about in the past for other age periods. And so these are the methods for regulating analysis and flow of information. This is control of your thinking, essentially. Control processes include things like memory and retrieval strategies, selective attention, rules or strategies for problem solving. All right, so this is sort of your higher level thought processes. They become less effective with age. So things like knowing how organizing or structuring something is going to make you more efficient at it. That requires control processes. Planning ahead. You know, things like planning ahead, knowing what is most relevant and what you need to pay attention to, you get less efficient. And so the control processes are just in general less effective in late adulthood. Now, I do want to emphasize, for most people, these changes I've been talking about, for the vast majority of folks in late adulthood, these are noticeable. You know, they are hassles, but they're small. They are not drastic, severe changes. They're noticeable enough to be a pain in the butt. Like, man, I wish I could do these things as well as I once did. Now, you do have a smaller number of people in late adulthood who deal with more severe changes and losses because they have certain disorders. All right, so the next videos are going to talk about more severe situations, like when you're dealing with dementia.